that conversation that had earlier on indicated on the new National Building Code 2024. And in studio, I'm joined by Engineer Eng.Maurice Aketch, the Executive Director at the National Construction Authority. Welcome to our studios tonight, sir.
Thank you, Iremu, for this opportunity.
You're welcome. And of course, we'll be looking at the Kenya's construction industry, which of course grew in an estimated $15.6 billion in 2023 and is projected to grow at 5% annually through 2028. But this is not without challenges, and that is why we are here to look at the new National Building Code. So, Bwana Aketch, I would like to know, why was it necessary to replace the 1968 Building Code to what we are calling the biggest shortcomings?
Thank you, and I want to take this opportunity to appreciate this opportunity from KBC to talk to Kenyans and indeed the globe about the National Building Code 2024. All right. So the National Building Code 2024, which is anchored under the National Construction Authority Act, and of course mandate is given to the Cabinet Secretary in charge of the Govt, that's Lands, Public Works and Urban Development, in consulting with the board to develop the regulations. And in this case, the new regulations, the National Building Code 2024, it replaces the 1968 Building Code, which has been there for far too long, 57 years to be exact. This code of 1968 has outlived its usefulness. And if I may use simple few words, it's become archaic and outdated. So the Building Code 2024 brings with it new things. One, the issue of flexibility, which talks about performance-based construction, while the old code was very static in the sense that it was very prescriptive. It was saying that for you to do, for instance, a wall, you must use a certain type of material. But this new code is saying, as long as that material is going to meet certain performance requirements, you're good to go. And that gives space for innovation, for new manufacturing or manufacturers to come up with new innovative materials and new technologies to make the world move. And indeed, 57 years down the line, a lot has changed. Again, the new code brings with it what we call resilient designs, or hazard designs, things to do with earthquake design, flood considerations, and wind, which talks about climate change. So like, you remember 2024, we had serious floods around April, May. This particular code, when it's used to design, those things will be a thing of the past, because we'll be designing things that will be resilient to those kind of hazardous impacts. Also, the new code embraces what we call house that is ready to use. For instance, there is internet connectivity, there is gas connections, things that are not there before. And remember, we're in the digital space. Yes. In the 1968 code, we are not talking about the digital connectivity. And this is where we are now. So it's a ready-to-use building in terms of internet, in terms of gas, and everything else. And also, most importantly, the new code focuses on safety and order around construction industry. So it gives emphasis to safety and order, and means you and me are safe. The people outside there are safe around construction sites or buildings that are already constructed. Okay. So the focus is on safety as well as order. And we'll look at some of the highlights of the new building code later on, but I would like to hear from you on what prompted the government to fast-track the development and rollout of the 2024 building code at this particular time. I know the deadline was on March 1st to have adopted these new codes. Yeah, so the building code 2024, which I have a copy of here, this one. All right. Yeah, this is the whole document. Was published in March 2024. That is the date of publication. Thereafter, of course, it was approved by both houses of parliament. And then in the code, it was meant to have a transition period of 1 year. So having been published in March 2024, 1st March 2024, 12 months later was going to be March 2025. So from March 2025, which is a few months ago, this code is now effective and is now in use. And why it was being fast-tracked is because of, as I said, the challenges that have been there before. Remember, the government is currently ambitiously rolling out what we call the affordable housing, which requires to have standards and order, so that it's able to accelerate and onboard new materials, new technologies to accelerate the development. So this code required to be put in place. Also, there was issues of challenges. You could see occasionally buildings were collapsing from time and again. So this code was also going to address and bring order to the industry to mitigate issues of buildings collapsing. And as I also indicated, the issues of hazards that we had, like especially flooding we had last year. So there was need for government to accelerate the National Building Code 2024 to address the issues of safety and, of course, protect the users against the hazards that were there then. And, of course, give opportunity for for stakeholders, especially in the manufacturing sector, to invent or come up with new materials that are in line with the code, that meet performance requirements in terms of durability, strength, fire, and safety.
Okay, earlier on you did talk to us about the new code and how it incorporates sustainability and green building practices into Kenya's construction standards. I'd like you to be specific about how this new code incorporates climate solutions.
Fantastic. So if you look at the code, there's a specific chapter that addresses sustainable design solutions. And one of them is issues of even rainwater harvesting. So when you're doing a building, for instance, it is required that you need to onboard solutions that's going to harvest the rainwater and store it for use, for domestic use. And then that will save the water use from you can call it the national grid for the water supply. Number two, the issues of energy use in terms of solar is also embedded there. Number three, there are issues of use of locally available materials. That's part of sustainability. Because when you use locally available materials within the places where the building is being constructed, it means you're able to promote the local economy of that area. You're able to promote local labor, and you're able to spur the economy of that. And that is an economic sustainability. And even in terms of environmental sustainability, it will prevent, pollution during transportation of material from a far-flung area to the construction place. So the use of locally available materials is one of the key aspects as well in terms of sustainability. And the other thing of sustainability, if you look at it, is also the fact that there is that the use of natural ventilation, which is also well emphasized, so that you don't use a lot of energy in terms of either cooling or heating the building. So you have natural flow, airflow. So when you're putting a building siting, locating a building within the place where it's being constructed, the windows must be such that they can get air flowing around your building, and it becomes a healthy building. So these are some of the aspects of green and sustainable construction. And most importantly, the fact that we are talking about hazard resilient designs, where we are talking about the earthquake resilience, wind resilience, flood resilience, is also talking about sustainability, because it's about durability of a building once it is constructed, and it's going to stand there for several years to come.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned digital connectivity, LPG piping. You've talked about multi-hazard, the multi-hazard design. Now, I'd like to know, when it comes to LPG piping, the affordable housing program that are being put up across the country, do they have the reticulation system in them?
Very good question. So let me give you a practical point, which is not very far from where we are. This is we are in Nairobi. We have this recently launched, or actually commissioned or handed over affordable housing here in Nairobi at the Metropolitan site in Mukuru. When we were launching the building code, having been published in March 2024 and having been approved, it was launched on 18th of July 2024, and the launch was done at the affordable housing site. The purpose of using that particular locality or area for launching was to demonstrate some of the things that are embedded in the code that have been included in that particular project. And if you look at it, that particular project, the gas installation is in a central area where you have tanks supplying are piped into the building. So the issue of safety is enhanced, which means you have reduced the risk of a cylinder exploding in your house, and even the unsightliness that comes with having things all over. So you have a lot of space because the cylinder is not occupying your space. the gas is reticulated into your house, so you just plug and play. So that's an aspect that was demonstrated in that particular project. And also, even if you are to bring in gas later, the pipes or the reticulation infrastructure is already in place. So you just bring in the pipe and put in the house. So you don't have to hack again. And even when you talk about the digital connectivity, the issue of internet or fiber, all the service lines or the ducts are already in place. So it's just about bringing in the fiber connectivity and put it in your house. Then you are able to enjoy free internet or internet at home without affecting the structure of your building, because it's already provided for. So it's a very, very robust code, and it provides for now, provides for future, and of course it will be subject to revision as things change. But for now, it is perfect and meets the requirements and the needs of today and tomorrow.
What of the old buildings?
Well,
the already buildings that have been put up.
A good question. Yeah. You know, we now need to go to assess the compliance or the, what I would call the, if you audit the old buildings, we check how the old buildings conform with the new code. And if, of course, there are things that are not compliant, then they'll need to have some modification. And that can be done gradually, because it's about the comfort of the home user. And of course, this is a conversation that can happen going forward, now that we have the new code. And remember, the old buildings were also built using a code. So the question is, we want to transit the old buildings from what the old code was saying to the new code. That would require some kind of modification and refurbishment to make them conform with the new code as and when the need arises.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that the code is in place following March 1st deadline, how is NCA ensuring that enforcement of this new code, including material testing, certified supervision, penalties for non-compliance and such?
Very good. So what we have embarked on, and I like this conversation because being here today is part of advancing our agenda towards sensitization, awareness and training of Kenyans on the National Building Code 2024. So from March, when the building code became effective, we have actually gone across all the 47 counties to sensitize all stakeholders on the National Building Code 2024. We've also engaged a very critical stakeholder, which is the counties, at the level of the deputy governors. We have had a session with all the deputy governors from across the country in a session, and this was meant to quickly have a quick takeoff in terms of, because deputy governors play a very key role, especially at the county level, where they even chair the committees and the county, the CECs, CECMs. So as they sit there, they're able to discuss and mainstream this code from national to county level, because counties play a key role in terms of using the code to approve or give development permits to the developers that send or apply for development permission. So it is this new code that the council will be using. When the architects are doing the design, they also use the same. When the engineers are doing the design, they use the same. When contractors are doing construction, they use the same. When the fundis are doing the actual construction, they use the code. So the code is applicable to everyone. When the developer wants to maintain their house, they use the same. When the house has outlived its usefulness and is supposed to be demolished, they use the same code to bring down the building. So in terms of enforcement, we have gone around the country, sensitized stakeholders as much as we can, but this is a continuous process, because you know, you could also be having new people coming in from time to time. Okay. Now, in terms of non-compliance, of course, as you're aware, the code is a subsidiary legislation which is anchored under the NCA Act. But now the Act has got penal provisions, what I call consumer protection. You know, negatively you can say there are penalties, but positively is protecting the consumer against hazard, isn't it? So what does that mean? That if case someone does not comply, of course, they can be taken to court and charged in a court of law, and when found guilty, either they can be fined a fine of not more than 1 million, or a jail term of not more than 3 years, or both, as the judge may find it. So that is the provision as far as that's concerned. But remember, there are also other penal provisions away from the NC Act, which also can find somebody culpable, and that, of course, the Directorate of Public Prosecutions, as they may find, and press charges against the offender when the case is taken to court.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, even as you undertake the nationwide stakeholder sensitization and training program, how are you ensuring that professionals within, you've mentioned architects, structural engineers, estimators, and all such, how are you ensuring that they understand and comply with the new code as well? Very
good. So what we are doing also, we are also doing targeted sensitization and training awareness campaigns where we are engaging professionals through their associations. For instance, we are working very closely with the associations of like Institute of Quantity Surveyors and IQSK, Institute of Quantity Surveyors of Kenya, the Association of Architects, the IEK, Institution of Engineers. These professional bodies are very key in terms of engagement and doing what we call targeted education. We've also been engaging the lawyers. You know, the lawyers are very important when it comes to about the enforcement of the code, because they need to understand what this code is all about, what are the provisions, so that when out there, they're able to detect something that's not compliant and they can take the matter to court, or when the client approaches, or vice versa. But most importantly, so we're engaging the professionals through the associations, and also through engagements like this one, where we are having a conversation today.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the 2024 code introduces stricter compliance, as you have already told us, and supervision. Now, how will that enforcement, and you have clearly told us in terms of the penalties that come with not being compliant, will be different from the previous decade that we have seen, the 1968 building code?
Well, the difference is that the 1968 building code was anchored under the Local Authorities Act, which became defunct in 2012 or 2010 with the coming of the new constitution, and of course it was replaced by the County Governments Act 2012. Now, if you look at the new code and the enforcement provisions, we are using a collaborative approach. We're using what we call a multi-sectoral approach, where each institution that interacts with the code, using their various legislation, is able to enforce. Like, for instance, if the Engineers Board of Kenya would find an engineer not following the code, they should take action against that engineer as per the provisions of the Engineers Act. The same, the Board of Registration of Architects and Quantity Surveyors, BORAQs, should they find an architect or a quantity surveyor not doing the same, they will do so. If we find a contractor not following the code, because we regulate contractors and construction workers, site supervisors, will take action. Of course, the developer also will take action against. If you look at also a very important document called the Physical and Land Use Planning Act, PLUPA, which is domiciled in the Ministry of Lands, but of course very powerful and being also implemented by the counties. All these pieces of legislation have got provisions for enforcement for the National Building Code 2024.
And clearly counties play a critical role in implementation of this National Building Code. Now, in what ways will the code help reduce the collapse of buildings and other structural failures we have witnessed in the past?
I think, Wairimu, you've already seen it. The code became effective from 1st March 2025. We are counting. This is the 4th month. And it was published last year, March 2024. The purpose of this code is to bring order and safety. And when you talk about collapses, it's lack of safety, it's lack of order. So when the overriding theme of the code is safety and order, then I don't expect to see any collapse of building. But let me add something. Provided all players comply with the provisions of the code. So what we ask for is 100% compliance with the National Building Code 2024, and we'll all be safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will you speak on maybe the construction sector in terms of job creation and also long-term resilience? And also tell us about how this code aligns with the international building standards and best practices.
Very good. So I start with the last one.
Yes.
So the National Building Code 2024 is a Kenyan document, but is cross-referenced across the globe. In fact, during the development of the code, there was cross consultation from all stakeholders, including the international experts, for instance. And these are experts who have also developed or supported development of codes in other parts of the world, working with our experts here in Kenya, and we're able to come up with this code. This code is actually a reference document for the globe, and anybody developing any code in any part of the world can actually also use this as a reference point. Right. That's how powerful this code has become. Now, if you ask about the job creation, construction sector supports employment, especially it's a critical sector in terms of job creation. And let's use the comfort zone where I'm aware about in terms of the affordable housing. Of course, we register projects as NCA across both public and private projects, but on the affordable housing alone, as we speak now, on every day, we have more than 300,000 construction workers working on a site. Okay. Yeah? That's very powerful. Which other factory employs 300,000 people in one go? It's not possible, isn't it? Right. And I believe as we accelerate the development, the affordable housing, that's gonna increase. But most importantly also, that's just on the public sector. Okay. When we talk about the private sector, it also supports a lot of employment creation in that. So in our database, the database of National Construction Authority, we have hundreds of thousands of construction workers registered, and all of them are engaged on a day-to-day basis, earning a living. In fact, why do I say so? If I call them for training, which I always do, I cannot get them in a session. I have to go to site to get them, because they cannot be available anywhere else. I can only find them on site.
Engineer, my director is on my case to wrap up, but I know there's a lot we need to talk about. In terms of the review, the code will be reviewed after how long?
We need to review it every 5 years.
Every 5 years, okay. That's a conversation we'll pick up from there, where we have left off. That is Engineer Eng.Maurice Aketch talking to us about the new building code. He is the Executive Director at the National Construction Authority. Of course, we invite him again so that we can delve into this conversation. 10 minutes is not enough to talk about the new building code. Now we take a short commercial break. We'll continue with the day's business news, and later on we'll have the sports update with Daniel Wahome.